Welcome to John's Tarot. Thank you very much. Thank you from wherever in the world you may be listening. A special thank you and greetings to Japan. I have a couple of listeners out in Japan. I welcome you from Japan. I have a listener out in Australia. And I want to send a special thank you to my listener in Australia. And if you would like a mention on John's Tarot, go ahead and send me a little note. I also have listeners in the United States. I pick some up in other European countries. In the United States, I usually get a listener or two out of New York and Florida and New Jersey and Virginia and North Carolina and sometimes Texas and just kind of throughout the United States. And it's just kind of an amazing experience. So what I'm going to get into today is I'm going to get into the Nordic runes. Uh, I have a presentation on the Nordic runes. I have a three-part series on the Nordic runes. And we're going to get right into it. My first part of the series is going to be the intro to the Nordic runes. What are the Nordic runes? And then I'll give you a little demonstration of how the Nordic runes work. Let me switch over to my Nordic runes page. And I have a little prepared introduction. Today I'd like to begin a new mini-series exploring the Nordic runes. Many of you have seen me cast runes at the end of my tarot readings. I may place a rune beside a tarot card and use it to add another dimension to the interpretation. But I've never really explained what the runes are, where they came from, or why I use them. So today, let's begin at the beginning. What are the runes? When most people hear the word runes, they imagine Vikings, ancient magic, or mysterious symbols carved into stone. But there is some truth to those images, but they don't tell the whole story. Originally, the runes were an alphabet. Just as the English language uses the Roman alphabet, the Germanic peoples of Northern Europe developed their own system of writing nearly 2,000 years ago. So the runes are like 2,000 years old. The earliest and best known version of this system is called the Elder Futhark. The name comes from his sounds, represented by the first six runes of Theou, Ures, Therese, Ansus, Radio, and Kenau. Futhark. Like the letters of our alphabet, each rune represents a sound. People carved them into wood, bone, jewelry, weapons, tools, monuments, and memorial stones. Runes could be used to identify an object, record a name, mark ownership, preserve a memory, or communicate a message. At first, they were practical. They were a form of written language, but they gradually became something more. Unlike the letters of our modern alphabet, each rune also had a name. Those names are not arbitrary. Each one referred to something recognizable within the everyday lives of the people who used them. Theou referred to cattle and movable wealth. You were worth how many cattle you had. Radio referred to a journey or a ride. Kenaz referred to a torch. These were not abstract ideas. They came from the experiences that people understood directly. Cattle represented resources, survival, responsibility, and prosperity. A journey suggested movement, direction, rhythm, and change. A torch brought light into darkness. It revealed what people had previously been hidden. The birch tree, Berkana, suggested growth, birth, renewal, and protective forces of nature. Over time, these symbols developed layers of meaning beyond their original use as letters. The runes began to represent patterns within human life. A rune could still represent a sound, but it could also point towards a process, movement, resistance, growth, disruption, protection, need, harvest, completion, transformation. In this way, the runes became both a written alphabet and a symbolic language. But their deepest origin is found not in archaeology or written history. It is found in mythology. This is the story of Odin's quest for wisdom. In the Old Norse tradition, the discovery of runes is associated with Odin. Odin was not simply a god of power or warfare, he was a seeker of wisdom. Again and again, the myths portray him as a willing to endure hardships, make sacrifices, and enter dangerous places in his pursuit of knowledge. His quest for the runes unfolds through a profound mythological ordeal. The story begins with Mímir's well, a source of ancient wisdom located beneath the roots of the Yggdrasil, the great tree of the world. Mímir guarded the well and understood its powers. Odin approached him and asked for a drink from its waters. But wisdom could not be obtained without a price. Mímir demanded one of Odin's eyes in exchange for a single drink. Odin accepted the cost. He surrendered one of his eyes and drank deeply from the well. This sacrifice transformed him into the one-eyed god, but it also gave him access to a deeper kind of vision. He lost one form of sight in order to gain another, but his search was not yet complete. Odin then undertook an even greater sacrifice. He fashioned a spear from the wood of the Yggdrasil, that's the tree of life, and wounded himself with it. He hung upon the world tree for 9 days and 9 nights. He received no food, no water, no comfort. He hung alone, suspended between life and death, wounded by his own spear. This was not a punishment imposed upon him by someone else. It was a sacrifice he willingly accepted in his search for wisdom. At the end of the 9th night, Odin perceived the runes within the depths beneath the tree. He reached towards them, he grasped them, and with a cry of triumph, he drew them upward. He had discovered the wisdom of the runes. He then descended from the tree, carrying their knowledge, and offered that wisdom, as the old tradition says, to those whom it might be of use. Whether Odin literally means hung from a world tree is not really the point. The mythology asks a different kind of question. It does not simply ask, did this event happen? It asks, what does this story reveal about human experience? What happens inside a person who willingly enters suffering in search of wisdom? That must be surrendered before a new way of seeing can emerge. What must die before something deeper can be born? Odin's first sacrifice was his eye. Symbolically, he surrendered his ordinary vision. He gave up the familiar way of seeing the world in exchange for insight into something deeper. The second sacrifice was himself. He hung upon the tree, wounded and alone, entering a state between life he had known and the wisdom he had not yet attained. This is the threshold. The old identity can no longer carry us forward, but the new identity has not yet fully emerged. It's an uncertain and often painful place. Joseph Campbell described myths as public dreams. Carl Jung understood them as expressions of the collective consciousness. From this perspective, Odin's quest is not merely a story about Norse god. It describes a pattern within the psyche. The well of Mímir can be understood as the depths of the unconscious, the hidden reservoir of memory, instinct, ancestral experience, and potential wisdom beneath ordinary awareness. Yggdrasil, the world tree, connects different worlds. Its branches reach upward. Its trunk occupies the middle world. Its roots descend into hidden depths. Psychologically, the tree can represent the total structure of being, the conscious mind, the physical world, and the unconscious depths from which symbol emerge. Odin descends into these depths and returns carrying something that can be brought into conscious life. The runes become the physical tokens of his hard-won wisdom. They represent insights drawn from a deeper level of reality and given a form that human beings can recognize. In this sense, Odin provided a model for working with any authentic symbolic system. The symbols are not simply decorations. They are not shortcuts around experience. They are not substitutes for thought, judgment, or responsibility. They arise from difficult process of looking from within. Wisdom has a cost. Odin surrendered an eye. The Buddha surrendered a palace. Christ accepted the cross. In recovery, we surrender our certainty and admit that our old way of living can no longer carry us forward. These traditions are not identical, but they reflect a recurring human pattern. Transformation requires sacrifice. We release an old identity before a new one can emerge. We surrender a familiar way of seeing before we can perceive something deeper. We pass through uncertainty before we can understand what the experience has given us. The story of Odin's quest is a code for that process. He does not avoid the darkness, he enters it consciously. He endures the ordeal, he discovers the symbols, and then he returns with something of value to share. That is the pattern of the threshold, the map, and integration. The ordeal is the threshold. The runes provide the map. Odin's return with their wisdom is the integration. Modern people sometimes dismiss mythology because it is not literal history, but mythology has never intended to function like a newspaper report. Myths preserve psychological and spiritual truths through symbolic stories. They describe experiences that are difficult to communicate through ordinary language. A loss, a sacrifice, initiation, death and rebirth, the descent into darkness, the discovery of meaning, the return to the world with a different understanding. These patterns appear in many cultures because they arise from a common human experience. We all pass through periods in which the old structure of life begins to break down. A career ends, a relationship changes, health changes. I'm going through some of that now. A belief system no longer explains experience. A familiar identity begins to dissolve. We may feel as though we are suspended between worlds. We know we cannot return to what we were, but we cannot yet see clearly what we are becoming. That is the place in which symbols often become the most meaningful. A symbol does not necessarily explain the entire journey. It may simply reveal the next step. Reality often unfolds sequentially. I've been talking about that recently. We are rarely given the whole map at once. Instead, each stage reveals enough information for the next appropriate action. Odin does not begin his quest already possessing the runes. He first approaches the well. Then he makes the sacrifice. Then he enters the ordeal. Only after passing through that process are the runes revealed. The wisdom comes in sequence. The story suggests that understanding is not something we can force. We participate in the process. We remain attentive. We endure the uncertainty. And eventually, something previously hidden becomes visible. People sometimes ask why I combine tarot and the runes. For me, they perform different but complementary functions. Tarot often describes the symbolic landscape. It reveals psychology patterns, emotional conditions, challenges, opportunities, relationships, and the deeper structure of a situation. A tarot card may show us where we are standing. It may reveal the atmosphere surrounding an experience. The runes offer something different. They suggest movement, direction, timing, momentum, process. A rune may indicate that something is growing beneath the surface. It may suggest that patience is required. It may show resistance or disruption. It may encourage decisive movement. It may indicate protection, transition, completion, or the need to remain still until the next stage becomes visible. The runes often help answer a slightly different question. Not simply what is happening, but how is this moving? That is why I find them valuable tools besides the tarot. The tarot card provides the image. The rune adds movements to that image. The card may describe the landscape, while the rune suggests the direction in which the energy is flowing. Together, they can produce a more complete and symbolic picture. I do not use the runes for fortune telling. In fact, I do not really use tarot that way either. Some symbols are not there to imprison us within the fate. They are there to increase awareness. When awareness increases, our choices can improve, and improved choices can change the direction of the future. The runes do not remove uncertainty. They help us navigate uncertainty with more consciously. They do not tell us that only one outcome is possible. They help reveal patterns, forces, and possibilities operating within the present moment. A rune may show that a situation requires patience, but we must still decide whether we are willing to wait. A rune may suggest movement, but we must still choose whether to act. A rune may reveal disruption, but we must still determine how we will respond. The symbol does not replace personal responsibility. It strengthens our ability to participate consciously in our own lives. Like the images of tarot and the hexagrams of the I Ching, the runes can become keys to self awareness, personal development, and spiritual understanding. They offer another language through which we can observe the unfolding of reality. In the next episode, we will begin to exploring the 24 runes of the Elder Futhark. We will look at their names, their traditional associations, and the patterns of human experience each rune can represent. We will discover that these ancient symbols can speak to modern life, not because they are magical objects that control our future, but because they describe enduring process within nature, society, and the human psyche. The runes remind us that life is always moving. Something is beginning, something is growing, something is being tested, something is ending, and something new may be preparing to emerge. So that is my little bit on the runes. I hope you enjoyed that. Let's move over to my tarot page, but instead of tarot, we're going to do a little rune reading. I could do stuff on politics and what to expect in the current political environment, and I could not probably, I know I could do it with some accuracy. I've done it in the past, and it's revealed things I would rather not think about. And really, in today's political climate, I'd rather not talk about on the internet. It just put me and my family at risk. So we're not. That's why I don't go there right now. That's why I don't do this. It's not a safe environment to do that in. But let's go ahead and throw some runes. These runes here I have created myself. These are runes I made. And so they carry a little bit of personal energy with them. And I'll show you one. Let's see. Regulars can I. And you use them similarly as you would use tarot. So I'm going to ask about a personal transition I'm going through right now. And I usually have them in a little bag. And I shake the bag and I pull a rune. So I'm going through a transition right now. Odin, Freya, please help guide this reading. I'm going through a little personal transition right now. Let's throw some runes and do a little runic reading. My transition into semi-retirement and healthcare insurance issues. What is the path I should be following? And I will throw 5 runes. The first, and I'll describe them as I go along. The first rune is, this rune is called Jira. I knew that. I'll leave it up here high. So the first one is me, where I'm at now. And this has to do with Jira as a rune of completion, of completion, and of fruition, and of cycles. And I'm coming to the end of a cycle, a long cycle of, and harvest. So I'm coming to and harvest. So I'm coming to the end of a period of harvest. A long nursing career, a long career in AA, which is not. I'm not excuse me. I have to take that out. A long period in a 12-step program, which I'm not removing. But a harvest of things I've worked hard to collect. I'm looking at Medicare and things like that. So that's where I'm at right now. And kind of obstacle. What kind of rune do I get for an obstacle? Uraz. That is the rune of the ancient Auric. And the obstacle. So this has been a heavy weight. This has been a heavy responsibility. This has been a lot of work. But the ancient Auric is an animal bigger than an oxen, and they no longer exist. But it indicates that I have I have the strength and the energy in order to complete this task, which I've just talked about. And I'll just use my life experience as an easy way to use the runes. And it's telling me you have the experience, you have the strength, and you have the ability to carry this weight as you make this transition. And I like that. And then in the past, what do I have? And this rune is called Algiz. Algiz is the rune of the hunt, the antler of the elk. And it indicates that in the past, I have been moving forward and not fearful of the things, the obstacles that appeared in front of me, but I've moved carefully in order to accomplish my goal. And that's true enough. True enough. It's been a process, and a process has been continuing today. But and it's been the hunt, right? The hunt and the chase and the journey of moving into this new part of my life. I'm in a transitionary period, that's for sure. What has been helping? Rune 4. Rune 4, this one is Gabo. What has been helping? I've been helped by the elements, the spirits that have helped me in the past. My higher power has been helping me. The universe has been supporting me. I had a quite interesting thing happen just the other night where it really helped move me forward in this process because I don't know a lot about these things. I get stuck. But I've had support of the universe. I've had support of my higher power. I've had support of the spiritual forces that have been guiding me probably throughout my life. And it's a rune of partnership that I'm in partnership with with these spiritual forces that have been helping me move forward. I would say that so far that's been a pretty accurate description. And what can I expect in the future? This rune is called radio. Radio is a rune of the wagon, the journey. Uh, and it's been a journey. What can I expect in the future? The journey continues. This isn't the end of a career, isn't the end of a life. It's the beginning of a journey, and I can expect it to continue the journey as I continue the journey with you into a new future. So for right now, and sometimes the rooms appear to me like,
hey, it's alive. Get something and kill it. Kill it.
it feels that way sometimes. So for now,
goodbye, Professor Marvel, and thanks a lot.
Well, it's been my pleasure. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. It was a little different topic. My next one, I'm going to do. I'm going to combine the tarot and the runes, and we're going to do a short reading, and I'll talk to you a little bit how I got involved with the runes, what happened to me, and then I'm going to do the final episode, which will be a little longer. I'm going to discuss each rune and their meaning and how those impact us. So until next time, be careful, be cool, be kind. And remember, have courage, find faith, and I'll talk to you all soon. All right, bye-bye.